Alan is going to talk about the re-release of Avatar. In anticipation of Avatar, The Way of Water, Avatar has been re-released to theaters in an upgraded edition.
Yes.
In 4K with new 3D. In addition, there are scenes from The Way of Water. Alan, love to hear your review.
Yeah, so I've mentioned it before. I've never seen Avatar, and so I took it upon myself to go to my IMAX theater and see it. Yeah, so it's IMAX, it's 4K, and I believe there are high frame rate screenings somewhere in the world. Both, so Avatar had been converted to high frame rate, and the sequels will be filmed in high frame rate as well. Just a warning, and I would suggest you not do it. So let's start positive. Probably the best 3D movie I've seen ever. I do like the effects. I like the fact that it's not just a movie that happens to be in 3D, but Cameron used 3D in great ways, in ways that you would kind of reminiscent of the old days of 3D where they throw things out into the audience, where they really play with that depth. And I will say, yeah, this is probably my favorite 3D movie. I understand now the hype behind it. I was not a big fan of the Na'vi, and I think by the end, I understand why people like them and love them. I also understand why people love this movie. It's a beautiful movie. Yes, it's a travel brochure for a place that doesn't exist. Well, now it's a travel brochure for Pandora at Disney World. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. I wouldn't mind living here, living there. So yeah, environmental message. I'm fairly middle of the road when it comes to the environment. It's got it all there. My problem with the movie is it is so heavy-handed. It's basically a tale about indigenous people and the environment. And what I'm frustrated about this movie is just, again, how heavy-handed it is. How basically it's us versus them. Colonizers are bad. The indigenous are good. All colonizers are bad, and all indigenous people are good. It really creates kind of a religion when it comes to the land and its interconnectedness. There's a lot of new age messaging there, and it's just, again, it's so out there. And I think my problem is I have always had problems with films like that basically divides that line right down the middle there, and gives no place for any gray in between. I think what's his? I want to say I can't remember the main character's name, and I just saw the movie. But he's the one who kind of is caught in between the two worlds, and and that's the connection. And they're obviously trying to teach you something here, and that just kind of turned me off. And I feel like Avatar is just going to be more of that, from each of the element, what we're doing to the animals of the ocean and pollution. I think that's going to be the next movie. Air will be about, how, it will be about carbon, too much carbon in the air and climate change and all that stuff. And I'm just like, well, we're in for a big environmental lesson over the next few years with this. Have you seen Avatar?
Of course, yeah. No, I saw Avatar when it was first in theaters in 2009, and I think it's the best 3D I've ever seen. I think it's reminiscent. It's reminiscent of. It reminds me of Viewmaster Viewers, where it would just sort of create a world that's sort of a 3D world that goes inside rather than having things.
I mean, I will
face,
say,
which is annoying.
I will say this movie is gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous, and I was sucked in right from the get go. I love the visuals.
Well, the lead character's name is Jake Sully, played by Sam Worthington. But also, it's not just an environmental message; it's a complete ripoff of Dune. It's someone from the outside, coming to another place where he's integrated into the indigenous people. He then takes up the cause of the indigenous people, and there's an environmental message about resources. That is Dune. That is the first Dune book. Mm-hmm. And the first Dune book is also, he has to in Jake Sully has to kind of master the dragon, master flying the dragon. Paul Atreides has to master the sandworm. He has to ride the worm, so to speak. And there, a lot of people say it's Fern Gully. It's like only on the surface level. Mm-hmm. In fact, Avatar, when it came out, completely shelved the Dune project that was at Paramount at the time, and because the stories were so close. So years later, Denis Villeneuve has now taken up the mantle to do Dune. I think it's smart to do 2 movies. Might have been better as 3 movies. Who knows? But I know Avatar gets a lot of hate. Which I don't understand. I think it's perfectly entertaining. You're free to ignore the environmental message, right? It is heavy-handed, but it's also there are other movies that are like it as well. Dances with Wolves, very similar, right? In Dances with Wolves, Kevin Costner's character, he's comes to this, he's integrates himself with the Indians. He ends up becoming one of them. He ends up even being renamed Dances with Wolves. He's part of their group. It's a more common story than one would think.
Yeah, but the idea that all Na'vi are good people, that they're, that none of them will ever waver in the community. It just feels, out of place to me.
I have a suspicion things will get more complex in the Way of Water. I think you're going to see rival tribes that are also of the Na'vi species. So I hope that it's more complex. I know that James Cameron said it's 3 hours. We don't need basically a remake of the first movie, a la Sam Raimi, when Sam Raimi made Evil Dead 1, then he made Evil Dead 2, he made Evil Dead 3, and they're all kind of sort of mini copies of each other where you just try to do things a little differently in each one, although Evil Dead 3 kind of gets a little wacky. But I think the thing is that Avatar, the reason maybe we don't talk about it as much, culturally speaking, is because it was a fine movie. It was decent. You either loved it or hated it, but there's no reason to keep talking about it. Whereas something like Star Wars or Marvel, we're still continuing to talk about because there's such dissatisfaction. Whereas hey, the people who didn't love Avatar, they just didn't watch it. But I know people that are super fans of Avatar because of the Pandora land at Disney World in Florida.
Yeah.
Currently closed, by the way. But,
I mean, the whole movie, I feel like it's people like it because of the visuals.
Right.
No one really talks. I mean, that's the weird thing is all this time has gone by, and even now I didn't know the story of Avatar. All I knew was it was a great looking film because no one talked about the story.
Did you get to see it with anyone else? You saw it alone, or
there were 4 other people in my theater.
Okay. Well, yeah. No, look, I'm interested to see The Way of Water because I believe in James Cameron. I think never count him out. Yeah. That guy, every time, look, and when he does something, it's always worth paying attention to. He's pretty much got nearly the month of December all to himself since Shazam 2 is no longer being released.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah.
At D23, we got to see scenes of Way of Water. We got to see 5 scenes. And we got to see it in 3D and we got to see it in high frame rate. And the underwater 3D looks incredible. And everything else looks incredible. I think, I don't think the quality of production has gone down on this movie.